leading up to Christmas, I had several projects on the go which were kind of time sensitive, and I had to put my Pathtag holder literally on the shelf for a couple of weeks. Now it's time to get back to it. Where I left it was, well, the shape's mostly done. It's time to do some sanding and to cut the holes. I'm going to do the sanding first. Luckily for Christmas, Wifey bought me a Dremel 4300, and it is fantastic. I've already found heaps of uses for it, and this is one of the reasons I requested it. My blunt as F router bits left really dark black marks all the way around the edges. This has got the little sanding drum disc attached on there, and it's hopefully going to make some fairly light work of cleaning up these burn marks. After I've done that, then we can get out the Pathtag jig and start those 81 holes I've been mentioning. Let's see how this works. So it's going to take time, obviously, but that is much, much easier than hand sanding. I'm on a fairly light grit there. I can probably even go a little bit heavier. Liking that Dremel. Alright, this is going to take a while. Good as that Dremel worked, edges are looking a lot better. I mean, I could get extra fussy, but I'm pretty happy with where they are. A little bit of colour adds character. Now it's time for my favourite piece of 240 grit paper, which I've used almost to death, but it's needed because there are just some areas which the Dremel simply can't reach, and to give it that final all-round nice smoothness, the 240 is great. I've already done a lot of it, to be honest. I mean, look how much cleaner that is, and it's feeling really nice too. These are the real tricky bits around my joined ocean sections, which I'm going to stain later, trying to sand all those out. But it's kind of relaxing actually, and you know, just get in there with some hand sandpaper, see if we can finish this off. I really get the value out of this. It's time for the scary part. I'm going to cut the 81 holes for the Pathtags into the main workpiece. Let's do a lot of setting up. I've got to be really careful here. So this is my test. See, it fits in there quite nicely. I've got the depth so the coins are just raised off the surface. I reprinted up my stencil. I've cut off all the coastline of Australia because I actually want to see very carefully how to arrange this and make sure that none of these holes are too close to the coast, because putting that lovely little chamfer around the outside has actually lost me a little bit of space. So I may have to tinker just a few of them, like the Tasmania. I've just cut that off. I'm going to do it by eye. How I'm going to cut these is with a jig. I made this for the prototype, the little 12 Australia one that I did earlier, and I've improved it slightly because with the 12, I just clamped this down. Now I've glued some sandpaper. So once that's stuck down, I've done a test, that's the paper moving. This shouldn't be able to slide around, and that'll save me having to reclamp it 81 times every time I want to cut a hole. I've got to be really, really careful here, because if it does slip and I stuff one up, there's no easy way to fix it, and I'll just have to live with the results. Alright, let's get out my spray adhesive and try and very carefully position this. Another quick hint, underneath non-slip matting. So again, I won't have to clamp it. That's not going to go anywhere. That's probably a bit more than usual, but I really want this to stick down. It's hard to get off after, mineral turfs will get it. I thought I'd take a quick moment to firstly attach the vacuum port, because that's going to help, but also show you this little bushel that came with my router kit. It's used for sign writing usually, and what you can see is that it's going to run along this circle here. So that metal will be the guide, kind of like when you're using the ball bearing guides that come with the bits, but this one is static. Plunge router obviously, so when I push down, I'm going to get my bit come up, and as I said, I've measured that to be just under the height of the Pathtag, so the Pathtags sit a tiny bit proud, and I'll be able to move the router in a circular motion like that, and hopefully the sandpaper stops it from slipping. I'm going to have to be pretty careful, but I'm fairly confident this is going to work. It's just going to take an awful long time. Here goes nothing. Let's start in the center. We're going to bugger it up. We might as well bugger it up good and proper. All of these I'm going to do by eye. Doesn't really matter exactly where they are, as long as the spacing stays roughly the same. Alright, let's crack it. I was so nervous doing that. Just push down harder. Yay! Success 1, 80.5 to go. Okay, start the clock. It's 7:13. Let's see how long it takes me to do these little buggers. 5:19, so it's just over 5 minutes. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 cut. In the Northern Territory, basically done. So that was pretty much one set of Pathtags. CNC would obviously be a bit faster and a bit more accurate, but you wouldn't have as much fun. That's working well. If I've counted right, that's 81 holes down. I had to stop last night, so I got to 6 PM and neighbours don't like the noise. But this morning it only took me another few minutes to finish it up. Trying to peel off my paper. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of sanding. That was the most effort I put into this thing. It's not the size, it's how you use it. Well, I did mention I had a few of these things. That's where my Pathtags used to live. Not all of them are going to fit in here. Oh, look at Mumsy. Don't play that anymore. I'm going to try and sort out all of my Geocaching Australia Pathtags because they came in a few sets, and that's why these holes are so oddly cut. I could have fit more on this size board, but I've sort of divided them up into the correct numbers. I've been looking forward to this part, see what we can fit on there. Whenever you're going to do something repetitively, particularly if you want it to be reasonably accurate, it is always worth considering building a jig. So what I've done is I've got one of my Pathtags which was a bit rusty and damaged. Luckily, my design actually had a dot directly in the center. Clamped it down. I'm going to use a little 90-degree corner here to drill a hole as perpendicular as I can straight through the middle of it. And I'm actually going to set up my Dremel, because the Dremel tool comes with this nice stand. This bit is exactly the right size for the magnets I'm going to use. And I'm going to put some centering marks on there once the hole is drilled so that I can position the Dremel exactly every time for those magnets. Oh, the Pathtag's tougher than I thought. So there's my rough and ready jig. I've got a hole all the way through the center of that Pathtag. There's a little test piece that I used earlier. So the theory is that that Pathtag should center. It'll stick in like that. I can pick up the Dremel, and now I've got to get it calibrated to the right depth. So the Dremel's got this lovely collar on it that I can use. Get that down to the depth I want. That looks about right. All right, let's run a test with that. That should literally be all it takes. There we go, one centered hole. Let's grab a magnet. Guys stick together like glue. Or magnets. They're really strong, these little buggers. There we go, that's perfect, look at that. So once I super glue that down, that should hold a Pathtag, no worries. Super glue, sandpaper, stick. These are 3mm by 1mm magnets. They're not worth very much. You get them off eBay very, very cheaply. And I've got 100 of them, so should have enough for the whole board. Doesn't really matter if it goes a bit too much, because you're not going to see these holes anyway once the Pathtags are on them. All of my magnets are now in place, and you can see there's a bit of glue leak because I got lazy towards the end. The ones over here are much better when I started. However, I have replaced my stick and sandpaper solution with yet another use of the Dremel. I've got these tiny little sanding discs which I super glued onto one of the buffing pads, which I'm probably never going to use, and that is working really well for cleaning up this excess glue. I didn't realise when I started this project just how much of a Dremel project this would be. Yet another use for the carving this time. Already used the Dremel to do some really fine details and separate out my island off Tasmania there because the router bit was too big. It's all sanded up and yeah, getting really close to completion. Very happy with this. Finally a present for myself. I think I've given away everything else that I've made pretty much. I've decided to be really brave and, well, scare myself and challenge myself a little bit by using chisels. One thing I can't do well with the Dremel, as I learned on my ukulele project, is straight lines when I'm carving. I'm sure there are ways to do it, I just don't have the skill. So with my two handy chisels, big and small, I am going to try and edge out to whatever depth I can safely achieve the markings of this GCA logo. Bit scary, honestly, but I think I can make it work, and it'll add some rustic charm if I stuff everything up. Alright, let's see how we go. What's the fun of a hobby if you don't challenge yourself? Oh, I am shitting myself. So far so good. Bugger. I've already damaged that little G inset there. Methinks I'm going to have to end up re-sticking that bit back in. Still lost the middle of the G, but the rest of it actually looks okay. Well, I'm going to have to do something about the centre, but at least I am actually getting a vague shape about the right size, and I'll keep working at that and see how we go. Ah, bugger. I was hoping I could keep this middle bit, but again, it's just too flaky, because I'm really crap at this sort of thing. Well, for a first attempt, I suppose I'll have to take it, but my bravery with the chisels was borderline foolishness. However, I think I can fix it. Obviously, the little details in the middle of the letters didn't come out, so I'm going to have to get tiny bits of wood and cut them and re-glue them down. Once I stain it all up, it should look alright, and well, you know, it was always good to practice a new technique. Now to do something which I'm pretty sure will work, so I did it on the prototype. I've got my stain and varnish out and all the water areas effectively. I am going to put down a dark layer, a couple of coats of that, before we finish it all in Danish oil. I've taped off all the edges here too, so if it runs over a bit, it won't bugger it up. I wish I could show you the amount of work that's going into these little bits of wood. They don't look spectacularly great, but it's as much as I can really get my head around at the moment. I've been hand cutting off little bits of wood like this. That's going to be my last bit for the G, and then holding a pair of pliers effectively, I am shaping them using the disc sander. Bit of rustic charm, but it actually worked fairly well on the little inlays there for my letters. Last step, I'm going to apply a few coats of Danish oil to finish this off. You've got to be careful not to shake this and get bubbles in it, and it's one of the few finishes I've been using that actually requires terps to clean up. So you can use just a cloth to do this, but as I've got a larger surface area, I'm going to use the brush. Really easy stuff to use this. Great. To do the back side, I've got my stubby nail board. I'm going to use some folded up grease-proof paper so I don't scratch the surface too much. I like the Danish oil, it's a really forgiving finish, and generally you only need 2 coats. The important thing is to try and not get dust on it, so after this is done, I'll shove it in the secret storeroom out the back where there is less wood floating in the air. Now you can see my less than pretty back. I probably could have finished it up a little bit better, but I decided crappy side's going against the wall. Between coats of Danish oil, wish you could feel this. That is super rough and that is super smooth. I like to hit it with a bit of 320. It really makes a massive difference to the finish. And try and get off as much of that dust before putting on the next coat of oil. 2 coats down and it's looking really nice, but I think I'm going to do just one more. After a bunch of sanding, of course. While it's true and one of the joys of woodworking is spending a lot of time in your shop, the reality is often I might only have a few minutes at a time to try and progress a project. Case in point, we're about to head out to my brother's, but I'm waiting for wifey to finish getting ready. So while the car's out, I've quickly set up a single cut that I need to make, which will progress this Pathtag holder towards completion. Cool new tip I got from Olding Woodworks, a friend of mine on Instagram, about a keyhole bit. Let's take a look at it. So it's a specialty bit for the router that's got a wide cutting head and then a narrow shaft, which also has a cutting blade. That's a Diablo one from Bunnings. They're about 30 bucks. You can see my tester and the first one that I've already cut. They're those old school wall hangers. So effectively, once you've got a screw in the wall, you don't need any other fastener. It'll insert and then slide, and the head will be stuck there. Really easy mounting method, and as I'm going to be mass producing some of these, rather than trying to figure out how to put a stand on it, this is going to pay for itself very, very quickly. Obviously on a square thing, that would be quite an easy job to cut. On an Australia shaped thing, it's a lot more challenging, particularly trying to get two of them parallel. So here's the system that I've set up. I lined up my router to the mark that I had drawn, and then I've put a temporary fence with a start and finish mark on there, so I know that these are going to be the same length. And it's a pretty easy thing to use, but you do got to need to be a little bit careful. What I like to do is I'm going to plunge that router down and make this circle cut. Then I'm going to lock the router at the depth of this circle and then make the cut. So I'm sort of doing it in two parts, one with the plunge function and then one with a fixed function, because that's going to give me the most control. Getting it out, actually, you might notice, is going to be tricky because all the sawdust builds up. So that's the first stage. As I said, now I'm going to push it down and lock it in, and that'll keep it at the correct depth for the 3cm tail. Well, there you have it. One Australia-shaped solid Tassie oak Pathtag holder made from scratch. And it was a punish. There are so many different techniques involved in making this fairly simple project. It's been put on the back burner time and time again because I've had other small projects come up for Christmas and gifts and so on that I needed to get done first. It is just for myself. It's going straight to the pool room, or the workshop wall as the case would be, in just a moment. But first I get to do the fun part. Putting all the tags down. Another shout out to Olding Woodworks, who gave me the idea to use the keyholes. That's what I've done for the plugs in the wall. I'm just going to hang it up there. But now let's get 2 years behind the woodworking times and use some stop animation to get these onto there. All done. They ain't going to fall out. Those magnets are pretty strong. Time to get it on the wall, and just to remind you that if you are a geocacher and you haven't checked out Geocaching Australia, make sure you do. There's an awful lot of fun to be had there, and you can get another new addiction in collecting the Pathtags. This is going to look fantastic on my wall. I'm so happy with how it comes out with the tags on there. It's just beautiful and colourful, which is not often something that I add to my life, so when I get the chance to do so, I might as well. What a fantastically fun project. It's always nice when you spoil yourself for a change. It's the first thing I've actually made that I'm going to keep. Everything else has been pretty much given away unless it was for the shop. Now what to build next? There's a long list, but I'm glad this one's been ticked off.